You paid your homeowner's insurance for 20 years, but now your house is damaged and your insurance adjuster has disappeared on you. When disaster strikes, no one should have to fight an insurance company alone. That's where Avner Gatt and his team of public adjusters comes in. Unlike the insurance adjuster who works for the insurance company, a public adjuster works exclusively for you. It's their job to document your loss, negotiate on your behalf, and make sure the insurance company pays you every single dollar you deserve. Avner Gatt and his team bring years of experience, industry knowledge, and a deep understanding of how insurance companies operate. They know every trick the insurance companies use, and they know how to win. Call Avner today for a free initial consultation and an extensive network of experts ready to immediately assess your damages. From start to finish, Avner's team manages your entire claim so you can focus on rebuilding and moving forward with your life. Don't let your insurance company dictate the future of your claim. Call 818-917-5256 or visit avnergatt.com today. 818-917-5256. Avner Gatt, your claim, our game.
Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after the Guy Benson Show and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang. Motec on Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And the on-demand Motec on Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Busy day today with the Supreme Court ruling on the president's tariffs. Also, the stock market rallied in the face of all this. We saw precious metals get a pop today. Bitcoin remained under pressure. President Trump's global tariffs are illegal, according to the U.S. Supreme Court today. And President Trump blasting the decision, the 6-3 decision, by the way, written by the Chief Justice John Roberts, removes a tool that the president has aggressively used to remake U.S. trade deals and collect tens of billions of dollars from companies importing foreign goods. The court rejected the president's argument that a 1977 law implicitly authorized the tariffs. The Supreme Court Justice Roberts said the president's assertion of authority was extravagant by any measure, in his words. The Supreme Court did not provide guidance, though, on whether or how tariffs could possibly be refunded, likely leaving those issues to lower courts. The president, in a news conference later, called the decision terrible and ridiculous and said he was ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, in his words, for not having the courage to do what's right for the country. Case, by the way, involved two categories of tariffs, where the president imposed one category on virtually every country in the world, ostensibly to repair trade deficits, and he imposed the other set of tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China, saying those nations are responsible for the flow of illegal fentanyl into the United States. President Trump also announcing plans for a new 10% global tariff after the Supreme Court struck down his previous sweeping tariff plans. The president said he would sign an executive order imposing the new tariffs after a news conference where he called the 6 justices who blocked his plan a disgrace to the nation, in his words. In all this, stocks moved modestly higher after the decision, including some considered especially exposed to trade and tariffs. We saw the dollar slip and Treasury yields edged higher. The Dow came in for a closing gain of 231 points, settling at 49,626. The S&P 500 gained 48 to 6909, and the Nasdaq gained 203 points at 22,886. The volatility index actually slipped today by 6%. The yield in the 10-year note moved to 4.09%. Gold got a pop, up more than $132 at $51.30 an ounce. Silver also saw a pretty decent pop of nearly $7 at $84.57 an ounce. Bitcoin's had another rough week, right now at around $67,995. Ethereum at $19.69. Doge at the moment at 10 cents. Keeping an eye on what's happening in the Middle East as the price of oil has spiked this week. Oil right now hovering at around $66.49 a barrel in New York. The Wall Street Journal reports the U.S. military has deployed scores of combat aircraft across the Middle East and will soon have a second aircraft carrier within range of Iran if the president gives the order to strike Iran. Over the past month, dozens of jet fighters and support aircraft have flown from the U.S. and Europe to bases in Jordan and Saudi Arabia, according to flight tracking data. On the economy, economic growth slowed sharply at the end of last year, weighed down by the record-long government shutdown, and also consumer spending cooled off quite a bit, even over the holiday season. The gross domestic product number, the value of goods and services across the economy, rose at a rate of 1.4%, and inflation-adjusted annual rate in the final quarter of last year, according to the Commerce Department. We also got another reading today on inflation. The Fed's preferred inflation gauge also came in slightly hotter than expected. Taking all this in, delighted to say joining us live now is Gabriel Wisdom, Managing Director at American Money Management and author of Wisdom on Value Investing, also an economist. Gabriel Wisdom, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon. Gabriel Wisdom. All right, we'll try to reestablish our call with Gabriel Wisdom in just a few moments here. A lot to take in, so, good. Gabriel, thanks so much for coming to the line. Give us a reaction to the big news today and the market reaction we saw here today.
Well, thank you, Frank. There's a lot to take in, as you said, and the irony of all this is that the Supreme Court ruling may be beneficial to the Republicans and to the president. And the reason for it is that midterm election years, as I mentioned before, are very volatile. They punish actually incumbent presidents. This has occurred in the last 20 of the last 23 midterm elections. 20 out of 23, that's almost 90%. And what happens is the incumbents lose seats. It happens for both parties. And without tariffs, inflation may actually come down. What is the biggest reason for the big shuffle in midterms? It's inflation. Historically, it's the cost of living. It's complaints about gas and grocery prices, broken promises. So it may actually be beneficial in terms of the companies that benefit from the new law or the new ruling. Is since the market is looking forward here, would be the big retailers. They buy a lot of products on very thin margins, and most of the goods that they sell have parts from China and other exporters. So the big box retail chains like Target, Nike, for example, Nike said that they suffered about $1 billion in tariff costs. Today, Nike shares were down because the market is counterintuitive, and these considerations were already baked into the pricing.
Interesting. I guess Nike got a spike and then pulled back in a volatile session for that stock. Closed down 21 cents at 65.40, and now the question is, will there be refunds necessary? That's one open question here that was not resolved, and the president blasted, of course, the Supreme Court decision overall, but also that aspect of it as far as what it might mean as far as the refunds of the tariffs that have already been imposed, and now the president imposing 10% tariffs across the board. What do you see ahead in the face of all that?
Frank, I think it's going to be messy. Some 1,500 companies have already filed refund suits with the courts. And the reason is it's going to be very difficult to make these refunds to try and determine who is owed what. So, and then as Treasury Secretary Bessent said today that refunds would be very disruptive and difficult and don't expect them. Now, the average U.S. tariff has gone from about 2.5% when President Trump returned to the White House in January to nearly 17% a year later. This is the highest tariff rate since 1934. Now, the president said in the press conference that he's going to impose a 10% global tariff. There's no precedent for this. Many legal experts think it'll be struck down as illegal pretty quickly because the statutes that authorize tariffs simply don't authorize global tariffs. This thing is a mess. I'll tell you what, if those refunds do have to go out, the government may have to borrow money for it. And this is one reason why the 10-year Treasury showed a very stubborn interest rate policy. The Fed does not want to reduce interest rates here for what I think is good reason.
And we did see the yield on the 10-year note pull back to 4.09%. Looks like the dollar slipped and precious metals moved higher. And speaking of that, we see gold back above 5,100 an ounce here today. Silver got a big pop in all this, back to just shy of $85 an ounce. What do you see ahead for the precious metals following this epic record run-up we've seen this year?
Well, it's pretty interesting, Frank. The Supreme Court ruling came about the same time that Russia, their central bank, their equivalent central bank, sold gold from their reserves. This happened in January, and we just got news of it. This is the first decrease in gold holdings since October, and this equates to some 300,000 ounces of gold bullion now available in the open market. So you would think that would put some pressure on the price of gold. But with the U.S. military stationing forces in the Middle East, with the president saying that Iran has 10, maybe 15 days at most to strike a deal over its nuclear program, with the geopolitical and financial risks in all this, and central banks accumulating gold, I think it goes higher. With regard to silver, it's got the characteristics of both precious and industrial metals, and it's in short supply.
All right. Oil has come under upward pressure recently because of the Middle East situation, as we've been covering here. What do you see ahead for the price of oil right now? Back to $66.49 a barrel in New York, and well above 70 now in London.
China accounts for maybe 90% of Iran's oil exports. A portion of the cargoes are booked for unknown destinations, ending up usually in China, from the intelligence that I've read. In the short run, there's been a glut of oil on the market, so you're seeing not any major, let's call it, material interruptions to Iranian oil production that would boost the price here. But they did partially close the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's a member of OPEC, a major player. I mean, if this thing goes haywire, I'd expect a huge spike in oil prices and gas prices here domestically.
All right, looks like we've seen a rebound in the Mag 7 names, which have been hit hard recently, and some of the software names too. And we see NVIDIA getting a pop today, back to just shy of 190, and some of the other tech names have rebounded. What about that beaten up sector going forward?
Well, I still like it, and this news about tariffs was very beneficial for those kinds of companies that need components that are manufactured primarily in China. So the Mag 7, these 7 companies of the S&P 500 have actually fallen back to pretty reasonable price levels. If you look at their forward price earnings multiples for companies that grow this rapidly, it's right in line with the broad market. So in my mind, that's pretty appealing. And then there's some additional competition coming online for these kinds of companies. We're celebrating the 1-year anniversary of DeepSeek, the DeepSeek shock, where the Chinese counterpart to ChatGPT came out of nowhere for a fraction of the price. Now Alibaba, BABA, has over 1 billion users globally, and they're a big player in this space. So the race to dominate AI, it's on.
Very interesting. And have you taken a look at some of the stocks that could potentially benefit from the Supreme Court ruling? I think some folks have come up with some lists already of some of the stocks that should benefit most from the ruling that we saw today.
That I like the companies that rely heavily anyway on the components that are manufactured in China and other overseas markets. And if the supply chain costs come down, that means more profit hitting the bottom lines of these companies. And we're talking about the Magnificent Seven types of companies: NVIDIA, Apple, Tesla, Meta, Amazon. These were all beneficiaries, and they acted well in the markets today. Nike, which I mentioned, didn't perform well, but $1.5 billion in tariff costs and they weren't able to pass those along, not very easily. The price of sneakers went up. They should benefit. Retailers like the Gap should do pretty well. And then there's the names like Home Depot and Walmart. Those weren't strong today because the market was forward-looking, as I mentioned. The price was built in, but they should benefit. And finally, I think the electric vehicle trade and battery makers all should do pretty well.
Very interesting. I know you also keep an eye on the cryptos. As you know, we talk to the biggest fans here as well as the harshest critics, and certainly Bitcoin has come under pressure. We did hear from Michael Saylor today, who has his company Strategy, which has that huge Bitcoin treasury at the moment, but sitting on tremendous unrealized losses. Looks like he tweeted out today or X'd out today that Bitcoin could go to zero or $1 million. That's what he's saying. What do you see ahead for Bitcoin?
Well, that's hardly, a vote of confidence over crypto. That puts it in the parlance of a Las Vegas bet, and I don't think that's fair comparison. I can understand why he's licking his wounds. The U.S. dollar-backed crypto tokens, the so-called stable coins. Those I think have a good deal of traction. And then if we're competing with the dollar, the assault on the Federal Reserve that we've seen in the last few weeks, that hasn't helped the dollar. But the world's watching as all these threats, come and go with the Fed chair and maybe with the Fed governors. In all of this, the dollar's been a little soft, but holding dollars is just what's happening in the world. And foreign investors are coming back into the U.S. markets, and that means they're buying dollars. They have to. So I think the dollar will strengthen. I think the cryptos probably do all right with the introduction of stable coins.
All right. Any specific places at this point where you're putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Well, Frank, there is a memory and data storage shortage, and this boosts the chip makers like Micron Technology, symbols MU, and the storage device makers like SanDisk, SNDK, Western Digital's another, WDC, Lam Research, LRCX, Applied Materials, I think that's the name most people know, AMAT, and then Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, TSM. These are the kinds of companies I'm looking at right now. And finally, I would say that the glass maker Corning.
What would you do if your online store converted 36% more shoppers? You could take 36% more vacation.
Another pina colada?
Yes, please.
Open a new retail location with 36% more square feet.
Fantastic.
Hire 36% more help.
You're hired and you're hired.
Shopify has the world's best converting checkout, up to 36% better than other e-commerce platforms. What you do with those extra sales is up to you. Switch to Shopify today at shopify.com/listen and get a $1 trial. Shopify.com/listen.
Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/secure. Protect yourself now at aura.com/secure.
You paid your homeowner's insurance for 20 years, but now your house is damaged and your insurance adjuster has disappeared on you. When disaster strikes, no one should have to fight an insurance company alone. That's where Avner Gatt and his team of public adjusters comes in. Unlike the insurance adjuster who works for the insurance company, a public adjuster works exclusively for you. It's their job to document your loss, negotiate on your behalf, and make sure the insurance company pays you every single dollar you deserve. Avner Gatt and his team bring years of experience, industry knowledge, and a deep understanding of how insurance companies operate. They know every trick the insurance companies use, and they know how to win. Call Avner today for a free initial consultation and an extensive network of experts ready to immediately assess your damages. From start to finish, Avner's team manages your entire claim so you can focus on rebuilding and moving forward with your life. Don't let your insurance company dictate the future of your claim. Call 818-917-5256 or visit avnergat.com today. 818-917-5256. Avner Gat, your claim, our game.
Which has been very strong, especially Glassmaker. They've struck a deal with Meta to supply fiber optic technology. That, I think, looks attractive.
Fantastic. What a week, what a day, and thank you so much, Gabriel Wisdom, for taking the call live with us here. Gabriel Wisdom, Managing Director at American Money Management, based right here in Southern California, also author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel, it's always great to have you with us. Thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank.
Motec on Money continues, 790 KABC. Stocks ending the week higher after the U.S. Supreme Court tosses the president's tariffs. The Nasdaq snapped its longest streak of consecutive weekly declines since 2022 today. The stock market ended the week on a high note after the U.S. Supreme Court threw out the president's sweeping tariffs, with all three of the major averages posting weekly gains for a change. The Dow today closed at 231 points, wrap up this holiday shortened week at 49,626. The week, we only had 4 trading days this week because of the President's Day holiday. The S&P 500 moved to 48 at 6909, and the Nasdaq gained 203 points, settling at 22,886. The tech names did see a rebound this week, including NVIDIA, which moved up nearly $2 at 189.82. Strategy moved up $1.60 at 131.05. Taking a look at the price of gold today, it got a pop, is now back above 5,100, 51.30 an ounce, after gaining $132 and change today. And silver also moved up nearly $7 an ounce, back to 84.57 an ounce. The yield in the 10-year note now at 4.09%. Shares of Nike bounced around in reaction to the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs, closing slightly lower, down 21 cents at 65.40. Checking the cryptos now, we see Bitcoin hovering just shy of 68,000, up about 300 here at the moment. Ethereum at 1968, down about $6 here at the moment, and Doge at 10 cents. Motec Money continues here, 790 KABC. Extended coverage of the big news today on the Supreme Court's decision striking down the president's global tariffs, saying they're illegal. The Supreme Court ruled in a 6-3 decision written by Chief Justice John Roberts, removing the tool that President Trump has aggressively wielded to remake U.S. trade deals and collect tens of billions of dollars from companies importing foreign goods. Whether these tariffs will have to be refunded remains an open question. The president, meanwhile, imposing a new 10% global tariff based on other legal authorities. Next week is the State of the Union speech, where this will probably come up too. And following all this closely is Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform, with a ringside seat to all this in Washington. Grover, thank you very much for jumping on the line here this afternoon.
Absolutely. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you too. And so today's the day. We got the ruling. What's your reaction to what happened there with the Supreme Court?
Well, I think most people were expecting it. The stock market went up a little bit, but they had priced in that certain tariffs that Congress had given the president the power to set would continue because Congress had done so. But the Constitution is very clear that only Congress can raise taxes, only Congress can raise money. Tariffs are clearly taxes. They are today, but they were even more clearly taxes when the Constitution was written because they were the tax that was being used to fund the federal government. So I guess the markets are going to look at this and say, this is what we expected. There will be some money put into the economy because half maybe or a little bit more of the tariffs that were imposed were not legal. And that money will go back to the people who paid it, the people who bought stuff. Retailers will get that money back. And it should keep prices from going high, and it will make things a lot more stable because the president put in a 10% tariff, but that's not going anywhere. It doesn't go to 20% for one country or 50 or 60 or 70. As when he was negotiating, there was a lot of moving around, and he got some deals that he wanted that were important, but he successfully got those deals, and now the tariffs that he's putting in, those are revenue, and they'll cost consumers money, but the certainty of them is a big advantage over to the period of negotiation where you had a lot of ups and downs.
All right, looks like there is still uncertainty, though, on the court's silence on the issue that created a new scramble as companies look to assert their rights because they didn't come up with this on the refund question. There, that's the question that was not resolved, and now companies are suing over this. What's going to happen here with these companies looking to claw back the tariffs?
Well, I assume if the Supreme Court said a tax wasn't legal, that you're probably in pretty good shape when you sue and say, I want my money back. If the Supreme Court had not ruled that, then you'd be out of luck.
Looks like the lawyers are going to be busy in all this.
Yeah, my guess is it'll move pretty quickly, unless there's something that is in the small print that people are missing. If the tariffs were illegal, then you have to give the money back. And then it won't take a jillion lawsuits. It'll just they'll set it up and get it done. What we really need is certainty. Lower tariffs are better. That's the whole point of what the president was trying to do, is to get other countries to have lower tariff and non-tariff barriers on our businesses, and he had a lot of success with that, and that was helpful and important. And now we move forward to State of the Union address, and my sense is that he'll be talking a lot about deregulation. There's a lot of good economic news that's come by in terms of the decisions by the courts, and the decision by EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, to end the assertion that carbon dioxide, the thing that plants need to live. Without carbon dioxide, the trees all die. Without carbon dioxide, the wheat and the rice and the corn all die. Somehow the left convinced somebody that carbon dioxide was a poison instead of a life giver. It's what we exhale as people. And the fact that is no longer an excuse to regulate everything that moves is a massive deregulatory move, and over the next years, it will save over $1 trillion for American consumers. It's actually a bigger deal than the tariff thing.
On the air live with Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform, and you've probably been following what's happening here with this proposed billionaires tax here in California, and ahead of this, which supposedly will be retroactive, billionaires are fleeing California for states like Florida and Texas. What about what's brewing here in California, and what do you think is going to happen to California's tax base with all the wealthiest people checking out?
Well, here's the challenge. By announcing that the left of the Democratic Party, that the union, SIEU, that was the union that was pushing this, does it through the initiative process, the governor can say, I don't like it, but the governor can't ever say it won't happen next year, because the modern Democratic Party and organized labor want this to happen. So once they've announced that they were thinking about it, anybody with any assets needs to move and leave the state and not be a citizen. You can do business in the state. You can do business in all 50 states, but you live in one of them. And people will choose to live in a different state. That happened in Massachusetts when they had not anything this confiscatory, but they just added a higher tax bracket. They used to have a single bracket. They put a second bracket in, and people started buying houses in New Hampshire. So the damage is kind of done. Unless you passed a constitutional amendment that this could never, ever, ever happen. If your neighbor said he was thinking of eating your cat, but then but he wouldn't put it in writing that he wouldn't eat your cat, you might leave the cat inside. Just even if he changes his mind and said, "Right, I'm not going to eat your cat anymore." Well, you thought about it once. Why do I think you might not come back to that? People will move their assets away from politicians and governments that threaten them. They don't even have to carry out the threat. They just have to know that they're capable of thinking it.
They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. Remember that big line there during
right.
the campaign? Now, you mentioned the word confiscatory. That's a word that we don't often hear, but literally the confiscation of wealth is what we're talking about here in California based on this thing being drawn up, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the way the European kings and lords used to fund themselves, confiscating other people's property. The protection of private property and the idea that when you earn something, it's yours, it's your house, it's your stuff, it's your stocks, it's your, you create life savings. That's what makes us a richer country than other countries. We have lots and lots of life savings. And for the government to come and grab some of it and just run it through the mill and spend it on, all the stuff the government spends stuff on, the destruction of capital makes people poorer. What makes a productive economy is labor, people working, plus the capital that go with them. You are worth more if you're using a computer than a typewriter. You're worth more if you're using a typewriter than a pen. It's the same person, but with more capital. The same person gets paid more because he or she produces more with it. A farmer with a horse can do so much, but a farmer with a John Deere tractor can do 1,000 times as much in the same time period. So the idea that people building up capital and investing it is the enemy. It's the enemy of is something that made sense in East Germany a while ago, and then they thought that was stupid.
On there live with Grover Norquist, and I see already on the schedule for, was it Tuesday? That's the State of the Union speech. It looks like the Virginia governor is already set to deliver the Democratic response to the President's State of the Union address. That person's become the Democratic darling at the moment, right? What are they doing in Virginia? I know you're right there and tracking what's happening there on the tax front and with policy changes there too. As you watch what's happening here in California, what are we supposed to know about some of the other states on the tax front?
Well, the new governor of Virginia is the best thing that ever happened to West Virginia. West Virginia is phasing their income tax to 0, and Virginia has just elected a Democratic governor, and the legislature is Democrat now. And they're running around with new taxes on from dog walkers, everything you can imagine. They're putting up new taxes. We'll see how many the governor signs, but that is a political party, the Democrats in Virginia, that is way to the left of what Virginia has ever had in governing. It's been a Republican state for many years, but frankly, the Republicans several times raised taxes. And despite my recommendation to them and not do something that completely stupid, they did, and they lost their control of the House and the Senate, and eventually they lost the governorship. So
You paid your homeowner's insurance for 20 years, but now your house is damaged and your insurance adjuster has disappeared on you. When disaster strikes, no one should have to fight an insurance company alone. That's where Avner Gatt and his team of public adjusters comes in. Unlike the insurance adjuster who works for the insurance company, a public adjuster works exclusively for you. It's their job to document your loss, negotiate on your behalf, and make sure the insurance company pays you every single dollar you deserve. Avner Gatt and his team bring years of experience, industry knowledge, and a deep understanding of how insurance companies operate. They know every trick the insurance companies use, and they know how to win. Call Avner today for a free initial consultation and an extensive network of experts ready to immediately assess your damages. From start to finish, Avner's team manages your entire claim so you can focus on rebuilding and moving forward with your life. Don't let your insurance company dictate the future of your claim. Call 818-917-5256 or visit avnergatt.com today. 818-917-5256. Avner Gatt, your claim, our game.
The UCLA men's basketball season's in full swing, and we need you to get to Pauley Pavilion to support the Bruins. Don't miss a single chance to see this year's exciting team, led by Donovan Dent, Eric Daly Jr., Sky Clark, and Tyler Bilodeau. Pauley Pavilion, presented by Westcon Financials, the home of the greatest tradition in all of college basketball. We can't wait to have you join us as the Bruins continue to build on that legacy. With big-time matchups, go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today before it's too late. Let's get Pauley rocking.
Dan Bongino returns.
It's real. You better produce something fast.
And he's not holding back.
Dan, that's backwards. No, I'm telling you the truth.
Hard truths and a bold perspective no one else can offer.
You may not hear this anywhere else. I'm always under the assumption that you're being played, we're being played. Man, this show continues to expand its footprint, and I love you guys for it.
It's the comeback everyone's been waiting for.
If there was ever a time, it is this one.
The Dan Bongino Show. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Republicans who raise taxes breed Democrats, and then the Democrats go and show the Republicans how a professional raises taxes. This is very bad news for Virginia and very good news for West Virginia and North Carolina.
Great that you know all that, and thanks for paying attention to California and explaining it so very well always. Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform, live with us here on Motec on Money. Grover, wish you a great weekend and look forward to connecting with you again very, very soon.
You too. Great to talk.
Thank you very much. Motec on Money continues here in 790 KABC. It was a rough week in the burn areas of the Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena with all that rain and flooding in many places around Southern California. Beautiful sunny evening right now. Is it going to hold, or are we going to get more rain? Let's bring in the expert on all this. Meteorologist Rick Dickert has joined us live on the air here this afternoon. Rick, thank you very much for taking the call here today.
Thanks for having me as always, Frank. And yeah, what a week it was. 4 consecutive days here in LA with rain. Some of those days, significant precipitation with some rock, mud, and debris flows in those burn areas. But today, a much welcome break. And I do have good news. That break will continue into at least the start of next week. So it's safe to wash your car. We're not anticipating any significant weather across Southern California, with the exception of some cold overnight temperatures, especially tonight. No issues with wind, no additional rain in the forecast through at least early Tuesday.
See it tonight, read about it tomorrow, but hear it now on Motec on Money. That is some good news, which we all could use this week after a very sloshy week with all those gully washers out there and unbelievable street flooding even in the urban area and on Melrose Avenue, for example. A lot of businesses were impacted there in the Fairfax district with a lot of stores getting inundated because of the storm drains apparently didn't function properly. What were some of the other areas that caught your attention that were very prone to flooding over the past week?
That squall line, Frank, that moved through Southern California during the early morning hours, just after midnight on Wednesday morning, we had a sustained wind. That's a 2-minute average wind of 41 miles per hour at LAX with a 53 mile per hour gust. That's tropical storm force conditions. A sustained wind of 39 miles per hour is tropical storm force. We reached 41 miles an hour. There were several go-arounds at LAX. And yes, the heavy rain, the ponding of water, the urban flooding. There was flash flood warnings issued even for many urban areas of Southern California by the National Weather Service, in addition to severe weather warnings as well.
Historically, did we break any records this week? How much rain did ultimately fall, and are we now overflowing as far as our water supplies are concerned?
Great question, and we are in great shape, Frank. I'll tell you what, for the month of February, downtown LA at the Frank Hodgkin Training Center, the fire training center near Dodger Stadium, 4.25 inches of rain has fallen already for the month, and that brought our water year total to 18.36 inches. Our water year starts on October 1st. That was of last year. It ends on September 30th of this year. It's still a 12-month period. We break it into 2 separate years because the bulk of our precipitation here in Southern California with our Mediterranean climate falls during the fall period all the way through the spring period. So through today, 18.36 inches of rain in LA since October 1st. That is 4.11 inches above an entire 12-month water year. In other words, if we don't get another drop of rain in Los Angeles between now and the end of that current water year of September 30th, we will still end the season over 4 inches above average. And more importantly, the Sierra Nevada snowpack. You saw those pictures. The length of the Sierra Nevada got a dumping. The southern Sierra Nevada, right now, the water content of that snowpack is at 101% of average. The majority of our water here in Southern California comes from the spring snowmelt of that snowpack.
Right. So I know a lot of people that are planning to hit these slopes this weekend, and hopefully have better results than Lindsey Vonn did in Milan there. But I know a lot of people are heading up to the mountains. What is the situation in the mountains there with snow? Certainly Mammoth, right, and all the ski destinations are packed, so to speak.
It's perfect timing in that the bulk of the precipitation, both the rain in the flats and the snow in the high country, fell during the week, and they have worked today to clear the roads. The resorts locally here in Southern California across the San Gabriel and San Bernardino Mountains are in the best shape of the season thus far. They were buried up in Mammoth with several feet of snow, so the roads should be in good shape. Still be prepared for winter driving condition, even though the snow won't be falling. There's still going to be lots of ice on the roadways and snow as they clear it away with those large snowbanks. But we're in good shape to get up to the high country and take advantage of that white gold, as they say. Also, Frank, a good reminder, watch out for those potholes. The roads are really torn up across Southern California because of the rain. You can call the city of Los Angeles 311 to report a pothole.
Right, and hopefully you miss them as you spot them. There's nothing worse. I had 2 tires blow out within seconds, probably within less than a second, actually, having gone over one a while back in Torrance. It's no fun for anyone to have to experience that. I know that from first-hand experience. And because of the unique situation we're seeing there in the fire-scarred areas, now that the hillsides are inundated, are you concerned about possible mudslides now, even after the rains have stopped, when we've seen this kind of an inundation and possibly areas that are packed with water now, possibly coming down along some of the hillsides?
That's always a concern. Even hours and even days after the rain stops, those hillsides could still be quite vulnerable. So geologists are watching those areas, the most recent burn scars, especially above Altadena and the Palisades area, the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire there. So they will be watching that just in case. But the weekend weather-wise looks great. High pressure building in over the southwest. We're looking at dry and milder conditions. The forecast high for LA tomorrow, sunshine and 68, even milder on Sunday with a high of 74. But again, a cold overnight tonight. We're talking about temperatures down into the 30s in the wake of those weather systems, those cold fronts that move through our area this week.
Isn't that something for the newcomers to Southern California? When is the rainy season, generally speaking? What are the parameters when we get the most rain here?
We typically say November 15th through about April 15th. So we still have a good month and a half to go. I looked ahead. The Climate Prediction Center is forecasting a below average March. And we've had a feast or famine rainfall season this year in Southern California. We started out in November with record-breaking rain in the city of Los Angeles. And then we went on hiatus. We took a 5 or 6 week break. It warmed up. Then the holidays came, another 3 to 4 weeks of wet weather here in Southern California. And then to start the year, we had dry and warm weather while the eastern half of the nation was enduring Arctic air. We were experiencing temperatures in the 80s, record-breaking warmth. We were the warmest spot in the nation for several days, and then we went right back to the wet and cool weather of this week, and now it looks like we're going to transition back to dry. And as of right now, the Climate Prediction Center is forecasting below average rainfall for March. And looking ahead to our meteorological spring, that starts on March 1st. It's the entire months of March, April, and June. They're also forecasting slightly below average precipitation. But as I indicated at the top of our talk, Frank, we're looking great with our water here in Southern California, already over 4 inches above our entire 12-month water year. We'd still like to get a bit more. The reservoirs are in great shape. They're filled up. As I mentioned, the snowpack is as well. So we're looking good heading into the springtime.
You keep track of the rain as well as the wind, which you mentioned too. Did I see it right? I think you might have posted something on social media this week about the planes coming in and out from a different direction this week out of LA, in and out of LAX.
That's right. When these weather systems move through off the Pacific, typically the wind shifts. We usually get the wind off the ocean, that sea breeze, that zephyr out of the west to southwest. When these low pressure systems are off the coast, the wind blows into low pressure systems, so the wind reverses and it's out of the east. It's coming from the land over towards the ocean. Aircraft need to take off and land into the wind. So we get a reverse operations pattern here at LAX. So those aircraft are taking off over the 405, over SoFi, and we did see that on a couple of occasions this week.
And now it looks like we're getting these clear-out conditions right, severe clear after the storm. We've heard that term used as well. Absolutely magnificent. As we say in Beverly Hills, it's going to be a beautiful night for an evening here.
It is. From the slopes to the shores, I like to say, Frank, it's all code 4 here in SoCal heading into the weekend. High pressure rebuilding after a good rain and snow and wind. You can see the snow-capped mountains. Perfect conditions for SoCal.
All right, so good weather for damage assessment too, unfortunately, in the areas that were inundated this week. So Godspeed to everyone that's been impacted heavily by the severe rain and wind again this week, and including a lot of businesses that were absolutely inundated. I actually drove on Melrose today and saw the damage firsthand, and it's really so unfortunate that that those drains that did not operate properly, even with city crews standing by there. Apparently, whatever happened there was very, very unfortunate, and a lot of damage was done. Rick, it's always great to have you with us here. Thank you very much for taking the call. That is meteorologist Rick Dickert. He's also very active on social media at Rick Dickert WX. And Rick, thank you very much. We wish you a great weekend.
Thanks always, Frank. You as well.
Thank you very, very much. And we had a sunny day on Wall Street for a change, too. In fact, an up week as well, with the NASDAQ finally snapping its worst losing streak in about 4 years. The NASDAQ today up 203 points, back to 22,886. The S&P 500 of 48 at 6909. And the Dow gained 231 points at 49,626. The yield in the 10-year note, 4.09%. Gold back above 5,100 at 5,130. Silver at the moment also getting a pop today at $84.57.
You paid your homeowner's insurance for 20 years, but now your house is damaged and your insurance adjuster has disappeared on you. When disaster strikes, no one should have to fight an insurance company alone. That's where Avner Gatt and his team of public adjusters comes in. Unlike the insurance adjuster who works for the insurance company, a public adjuster works exclusively for you. It's their job to document your loss, negotiate on your behalf, and make sure the insurance company pays you every single dollar you deserve. Avner Gatt and his team bring years of experience, industry knowledge, and a deep understanding of how insurance companies operate. They know every trick the insurance companies use, and they know how to win. Call Avner today for a free initial consultation and an extensive network of experts ready to immediately assess your damages. From start to finish, Avner's team manages your entire claim so you could focus on rebuilding and moving forward with your life. Don't let your insurance company dictate the future of your claim. Call 818-917-5256 or visit avnergatt.com today. 818-917-5256. Avner Gatt, your claim, our game.